September 1864. What is this? Several civilian houses were burned during the rebellion. Kyo needed to be rebuilt, but it looked as if the process would take a while. I did my best to look for my father while we were out on patrol, but try as I might, I couldn't find even a hint of his whereabouts. September 1864. Saito and his men had this particular shift, so I joined them. The heat in the city was almost unbearable, as if we were inside of an oven. There was a group of people sitting listlessly at the side of the road. I stopped. They probably lost their homes in the fire. Saito-san. He turned around and looked at me placidly.
どうした？歩き疲れたか？
Oh, no, nothing like that. I was just, hoping to talk to those people. Would that be okay? They might know something about my father. He frowned just slightly. Is that not okay?
いや、構わん。ただあまり時間は割いてやれん。それでもよければ聞いてこい。
Thank you. I jogged over towards a small crowd of people who looked up as I approached. Excuse me, but I'm looking for someone. He's bald and... I talked to several different people, but none of them knew anything about my father. Was he even still in Kyo? Could he have gotten involved in the Hamakuri rebellion and lost his life? No. That wasn't possible. That isn't possible. That wasn't possible. He had to be alive. I wiped sweat from my face and desperately tried to convince myself that it was true. Saito-san was walking in front of me when he suddenly turned around and spoke.
大丈夫か？随分暑そうだが。
Oh, yes, I'm fine. I didn't want him to worry, so I smiled brightly.
そうか。具合が悪くなったらすぐに言え。無理をして倒れられても困る。
Of course, thank you. I know the only reason he was being so attentive was because Ichikata-san gave him orders to take care of me, but it was still nice that he was making sure I was okay. What about you? Are you hot? You're wearing black and you've got a jacket on.
暑さ自体は耐えられぬほどではない。ただ。
Oh, it said he's wearing black, but that's... I feel like that's a localization thing because between this sprite and the original sprite, Saito-san was actually wearing a black kimono underneath all that, but now it's been changed to a kind of navy-ish blue. So technically that sentence doesn't make sense anymore, but in some media, blue can replace black, so it kind of makes sense and it kind of also doesn't make sense. Is what? He frowned almost imperceptibly and laid a hand on his sword.
今日の夏は湿気が多く、気を抜くと刀が錆びてしまう。それだけが心配だ。早く秋になってくれぬものか。
Got it. So Saito does not like summer but prefers autumn. He was more worried about his sword than himself. It must be really important to you.
己が身を守る爪だからな。
As he spoke, Saito-san pulled up short and turned to look at the building in front of which we stood. It appeared to be a sword shop. He was staring at the sword in display, his gaze almost hungry. It was like watching a child who just discovered a new toy he couldn't resist. Saito-san. He twitched a little in surprise and looked at me.
あ、すまない。今は巡察中だったな。急いで屯所に戻らねば。
He composed himself and walked back towards the rest of his men. You looked really excited. Was that a nice sword? He drew himself up a little as he began to speak.
備前長船兼光。刀といえば備前刀、備前刀といえば長船という言葉もあるほど、備前には優秀な刀工が多い。今日現存する刀は備前刀が一番多いと言われていて。
Oh. Uh-oh. He continued to talk about swords for some time. There it is. There it is. Listen, you want to have Saito-san talk to you? Ask him about swords. He won't stop talking. To be honest, I never saw him so talkative before. It seemed a little strange that swords brought him out of his shell, but it was nice.
どうかしたか。笑われるようなことを言ったつもりはないが。もしや、今の講釈に誤りでもあったか。
Oh, no, not at all.
では何故笑っていたのだ。
What was I going to say? I think I understand. I don't really know much about swords, but I think I do kind of understand how you feel about them. I laid one hand on my kodachi as I spoke. I cherish my sword too. Saito-san's mouth twitched into a word genuine smile.
あんたもその子たちに惹かれているということか。ならばその子たちも必ずやあんたの思いに応えてくれるだろう。
His tone was as flat as ever, but there was a look in his eyes that I'd never seen before. It was different from when he spoke up in meetings or issued orders to his men. I could see how much he cared about his swords.
さて、急いで屯所に戻らねばな。思った以上に時間がかかってしまった。
You're right. I nodded, but Saito-san suddenly stopped. I looked over and his face seemed strained. Uh-oh.
今、俺が刀に見とれて時間を無駄にしたことは、
Don't worry, I won't tell Ichikata-san what happened. He seemed to relax.
そうか。俺もまだまだ未熟だな。タイムよりも己の興味を優先させてしまうとは。
Saito. Saito. He hunched his shoulders and walked more quickly. Watching him made me think of how he'd look when he stopped in front of the shop earlier. He'd been so excited, almost like a child. It made me smile.
どうした？何を笑っている？
Oh, nothing important. Just remembering something.
何を思い出していたのかは聞かずともわかる。大方俺が店先の刀に見入ってしまい、タイムをおろそかにしたことを笑っていたんだろう。
Saito! No, I wasn't laughing at you.
弁解などいらん。先ほどの所業はあんたに笑われても仕方あるまい。
Oh, come on!
これでも反省はしている。同じ過ちは二度と繰り返さん。
He looked away from me with an attitude that could only be described as sulking. It wasn't that I'd meant to mock him. There had just been something about his childlike glee that was amusing and cute, in a way. But no doubt telling him that would only have
急ぐぞ。 副長が豚書で我々の報告を待っているはずだ。
Oh, right. Saito-san was a quiet, taciturn man, which many people interpreted as a show of coldness, but when swords were the subject of conversation, he lit up. And he pouted when I mentioned this. It was a side of him I'd never guessed at, and something about seeing it cheered me up. Oh boy, chapter 3! Oops. The dawn of the new year has arrived! The setting sun glowed through the windows with a warm, rich maroon, an ominous kind of beauty. It's cold. I came out into the yard and my body stopped due to the cold. Guess spring will take a while. Oh. I wasn't too fond of Ito, but it was Sanan-san and his condition that really worried me. I really wish his arm would just heal. That arm, or perhaps more accurately the lack of it, was the source of his change in personality. Still, as nice as it would be for Sanan-san's arm to simply start working again, that seemed like the stuff of a child's fable, not real life. That was when I remembered.
薬でも何でも使ってもらうしかないですね。三男さんも納得してくれるんじゃないかな。
掃除、めったなこと言うもんじゃねえ。幹部が羅刹になってどうするんだよ。
Okuta was talking about the Shinsengumi having some secret serum back in the day. Judging from how they spoke of it, it's an item with circumstances. But... And I was not to know about the existence of that serum. If I were to look into it without approval, there was no doubt that I'd be punished. But I'm the daughter of a doctor. I'm pretty sure I had more knowledge of medicine than the men of the Shinsengumi did. Alright, we're just gonna push Yamazaki to the side for a second. I returned to my room. Perhaps it would be best to just return to my room. I didn't want to get in trouble for wandering around, but most of all, I didn't want to find myself in anyone's way. Even though I was worried about Sanan-san, maybe it's for the best for me to stay out of the way. Just as the sun dipped below the horizon, the compound exploded with activity. My worry increased tenfold. Did something happen? I waited for a few moments for the activity to settle down, but it did no such thing. Something was wrong, and I could feel it. Anyway, where should I go? Go to the inner courtyard. That's what we're doing. Winds chilled the courtyard. The candle flickered. Who is messaging? The air was still and the whole place was silent. It was hard to believe the chaos of the common room was only moments ago. Saito-san stood in a daze, gathering thoughts as he watched the stars shiver in the distance.
中に戻っていた方がいいのではないか。ここは冷えるぞ。
I'm fine, I'm not cold. Saito-san stared at me. His expression was blank, and he seemed to be calculating, but alas, he simply looked back to the sky.
剣に生きる者にとって、己が腕は生きる意味そのもの。それを失ってしまえば、自ら命を絶つのもまた道理か。
I saw the white air as Saito-san's breath as he muttered to himself.
あの薬に手を出すほど追い詰められているとは思わなかった。 今まで我々が見ていたのはあくまでも三男さんの一部に過ぎなかったということだろうな。
Saito-san. Saito-san wasn't the best at expressing how he felt, but it was clear his words were tinged with pain. I could sense he was deeply remorseful for not being able to stop Sun-san. What's going to happen to him? Between us followed a period of silence, and I was mad at myself for asking such a question. There was no way for Saito-san to know the answer. Soon, though, he quietly responded, and it was no surprise to see him disengaged. And it was no surprise to see him become disengaged.
新選組の総長が狂ったことが公になるくらいなら、三男さんには死んでもらった方がいいだろうな。
What? My voice cracked, but Saito-san scarcely blinked. Could you live with that, Saito-san? If you were to be given orders to assist with Sun-san's beheading...
俺の解釈ならば、さして苦しませることなく、三男さんをあの世へ送ることができる。
Oh, Jesus.
そうせねばならぬのなら、誰であろうと切る。それだけの話だ。
A chill grazed my spine, but not from the night air. I couldn't believe it. Is this what it takes to be a Shinsengumi warrior? He could probably kill me at any moment. If it were called upon him, and I realized just how expendable I was. God, my brain was all over the place on that one. I'm going to read that again. He could probably kill me at any moment, if it were called upon him. And I realized just how expendable I was.
だが、できるなら仲間は殺したくない。あれは寝覚めの悪いものだ。
The night I met Saito-san, I'd watch him kill a man, whom he may have known, without blinking. Or maybe that's how it looked to me. I thought him cold at the time, but I realize now how much pain he must have been in. There's no way it would be painful. There's no way it wouldn't be painful. Moving together with hope of sharing a vision. Just then, I sensed someone approaching us. I gasped and turned around.
さっきから広間の方が騒がしいが、何かあったのか？
まだ起きていたのか。
あれだけ騒がれてのんきに寝てられると思うのか？で、何があった？他の連中にも聞いてみたが、要領を得ない答えしか返ってこなくてな。
Kondo-san made sure to tell us to keep Ito and his gang from finding out what happened tonight. How were we supposed to play it off? Panicked, I looked at Saito-san.
今の段階ではあんたに明かすことはできぬ。
おお、幹部の俺にもか。
俺とて事態を完全に把握しているわけではない。今の状況を下手に明かしてもいらぬ誤解を招くだけだ。明日になれば局長や副長が改めて説明の場を設けてくださるはずだ。それまで待て。
なるほど。
Miki shrugged at his answer and shuffled off without saying another word. Was that alright? Do you think Miki was satisfied with that?
そこまで愚鈍ではあるまい。かの者は伊藤さんの実弟だからな。
I thought so.
とはいえ、無用な騒ぎを起こしたがるたちだとも思えぬ。気は許さぬ方がいいだろうが、無用な警戒もまたいらぬはずだ。
Saito-san's reserved nature made it difficult for people to observe him, but he used this to his advantage and seemed to be astute when watching others.
何にせよ今は三男さんの無事を祈るだけだ。
You're right. Above us sang the wind of the gentle night, its song catching the ears of the star-filled sky.